Thank you so much for having me here today. It is an honor when Reverend Mindy called me and said, could you come on September 6th? I'm like, yeah, any excuse to just get away, right? But thank you for having me. As you all know, I am the Associate Minister at Unity Church of the Triangle in Raleigh. I've been there for 3.5 years, and I love being a Unity minister. I love my church, and I love Unity of Wilmington as well, I must say. As you know, one of my responsibilities as the associate minister there is to organize educational events, and we call it transformational studies. And sort of like this year, we decided on having like a theme for the year, which are the 12 powers. But during the summer, we designed like a spiritual heroes summer, which was great. We had a hero per week, and then we had a movie during the week. People could come to the church and watch a documentary and a movie, and then they would come for the lesson on that Sunday. And even though most of these heroes, we already knew who they were, like Mandela or Martin Luther King Jr. or Mahatma Gandhi, really our goal was to have the people go deeper as to why are they heroes? How can we see the powers that we teach in Unity so well played out? And beyond that, as I would understand that sometimes, like how many, I have read, for instance, about Gandhi for so long, but then it's like when you are in a different place in consciousness, you see and things that you didn't see before. So anyways, the reason why I'm telling you that is that I was the only one we had, well, besides Mary Magdalene, was Mother Teresa. And I've always been a big fan of Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa, like all the other heroes, really exemplified for me what I call the power of one. And we tend to think that, wow, I'm just one person in the world. How can I really make a difference? Well, we can, and these heroes prove that. When you think of Mahatma Gandhi, that one person managed through his own spiritual discipline and transformation to affect the life of 350 million people, because that's how many Indians there were in India when they became liberated from Great Britain. Then we think of Martin Luther King, that his 13 years of work or ministry really brought forth changes for the African American community that no one had ever been able to in 350 years. One person. Or Nelson Mandela, who was so willing to commit to his cause and his mission in life with his people of South Africa, that he's, was in jail for 27 years. To get out of jail and become the president of the same nation and bring all this change and equality. One person. It talks to you about the power of one. So don't ever underestimate yourself. I think that's one of the messages from our heroes, because there's power in us as we transform ourselves and we find our own inner truth. So today, we'll be talking about a woman who really had no main accolades as the way the world sees it. No worldly possessions, no physical beauty, no impressive university or educational titles, no money, not even intelligence the way we see cognitive intelligence. Still, she changed the lives of millions to this day. And when you think of this lady who you already know who I'm talking about, her name, actual name is Agnes Gonshabahatsu, there's one specific virtue that it was so real in her that was what really triggered all her work throughout her life. And you probably know what that virtue is compassion. So Mother Teresa was born in Albania, and when she was 18, she felt this call to go out and join the Sisters of Loretta, which is an Irish order serving in India. So she went off to India at 18 and became a geography teacher in a high school with like middle-class girls, and lived in this very sheltered convent and school for years. But one day, as she was I believe she was 36, she was on her way to a retreat and got this really call to go out into the streets of Calcutta and help and serve the poorest of the poor. Without any specific knowing of how, of what it will really entail, she trusted the call, trusted her intuition, and started writing letters to the Vatican and the Pope asking for permission to just walk out of her order and do that. Of course, there was a lot of pushback for years. But if you've seen her movies or documentaries, she stayed in the knowing that sooner or later, if this was God's will, doors would be open. And they did. So she goes out the very first day without any plan, without any money, but just a heart and a conviction and a faithfulness to her inner mission to start helping people. It is believed that many people see her like someone with a generous heart of a mother, or the dedication of a spiritual seeker, or the compassion of a saint. But I'd love to see how some people believe that she had the instincts of a CEO. And actually, there's a book called Mother Teresa CEO. And think about it. She founded an enterprise that has grown over the decades, has a global brand name, has raised billions of dollars, and has served millions of customers in 130 countries. Doesn't that sound to you like CEO material? And even though it sounds like big, really her intention from the very beginning was not like maybe Gandhi or Mandela to create social change. It was more as to a one-on-one. How can I make sure that I am in a position to serve you, to remind you of how much God loves you, and to remind you that you are much more than what you think. So as I dig deeper into the whole Mother Teresa life, I came to the conclusion that she's really a unity person. And we see all the Catholicism all around her, but when you go deeper, you realize that I'm going to prove it to you. So the very first thing, of course, we know unity is a positive spiritual path based on prayer and all of prayer in your everyday. And one of the main ideas that makes us so unity is that the idea that I was sharing with the kids, the fact that we are, and that Nancy was expressing earlier, that we are divine, that there is a divine presence in all of us, and that's why we affirm, I behold the Christ in you. And Mother Teresa, her inspiration in going out and serving others was that she truly believed that each person was Jesus. She says, we do everything for Jesus. We do it to Jesus. And even though this is something we talk about in Unity every time, actually when we do the meet and greet, that's what we do, right? We connect with the divine presence in each one. But I ask myself, and I ask you, what would it really mean if each one of us would really, truly see everyone as a divine being, as Jesus? I mean, really. It's like, I remember years ago I read about the story of this lady that had this company, and overnight she became very successful. And they said to her, what is your secret to success? And she says, well, each time the phone rings, I say, that is God calling. Right? So that idea that Mother Teresa is so devoted to, of seeing Jesus in everyone, it's what we teach in Unity. But it's like, can we step it up and just, as I'm looking at you, just seeing different faces of the same God. Another idea that we emphasize a lot in Unity is the idea of God as the source. God as the source of everything in our lives, of divine ideas, of our healing, our harmony in our relationships, finances, and so on. And ultimately, Mother Teresa created this order called Missionaries of Charity. And the Missionaries of Charity, they take a wholehearted vow, they take a special vow to wholeheartedly offer free service to the poor of the poor. That's what they stand for, that order. And it's interesting to think that as they do that, as an organization, they don't have a set way that they're getting federal funds or that they are getting a certain stream of donation. There's not really an already known way of how this operation will be financed. However, if you go to YouTube and you write Mother Teresa 1974, you're going to see an interview of Mother Teresa by an Irish reporter. And the Irish reporter says, so many Mother Teresa, just share with me how many times have you had to just send people away because you don't have any more room? And she said, ever, never. There's always been an extra blanket, an extra loaf of bread. And you think about it. They are manifesting what we teach, that it's the divine providence. If you really connect to the source, and you let the source and you trust the source, if you, most especially if you're doing God's work, and I'm a true believer that if you and I are aligned with God's will for us in our lives, and we do it from the heart, and we do it with all our love and a commitment in the name of service and well-being, the doors of heaven open. And she's a great proof that somehow her operation was always funded. Another point is that in Unity, we emphasize so much the importance of prayer. It's like if they ask you, what is Unity? Well, you can say a lot of definitions, but if you want to really come to the core of what it is, it's prayer. It's a life based on prayer, the spiritual practice, right? And isn't that what Mother Teresa? Mother Teresa's secret of success, I would say, was her dedication to a life of prayer. She even says every moment of prayer is a sure positive gain. The time we spend in having our daily audience with God is the most precious part of the whole day. And actually, I asked Annette, if you see the program today, you're going to get a lot of quotes from Mother Teresa on prayer and silence, which will come very handy today for for this week for the World Day of Prayer. But in that same interview, they asked, so tell me, Mother Teresa, what is your everyday life like? And she goes, well, we get up in the morning, we pray, then we go to Mass. Then at noon, as we all, walk to our places of work, we pray the Rosary. I remember thinking, when do they eat? But I guess that was assumed, right? And then they, in the afternoon, they have some more reflection and reading time, and at night they have contemplation and adoration and bonding. Every day, a strict discipline of prayer. Of course, think about it. How can you otherwise maintain yourself in a loving position to clean the leper and help the person dying and, deal with abandoned children? There has to be something much more than your humanity and your human self supporting the work. That is the magic of prayer. She says everything starts from prayer. Without asking God for love, we cannot possess love. And still less are we able to give it to others. Actually, her business card, she says, she didn't have a traditional business card of name, email, no. Her business card said, the fruit of silence is prayer. The fruit of prayer is faith. The fruit of faith is love. The fruit of love is service. And the fruit of service is peace. When you hear all of this, you say, okay, she's definitely unity. But was she on cloud nine the whole time? Was she so connected and holy? Well, I don't know if you know, but after she passed away, it was learned that she really struggled internally. And she had a lot of letters and writings, and she did ask for not to be published. But of course they did, and of course I bought the book. And the name of the book is Come Be My Light. I'm like, Mother Teresa, I'm sorry, but I'm interested, right? And in this book, it's really, I remember being touched deeply as to, oh my God, with all of this struggle, she kept going. So I found some comments on this priest that I think are really enlightening as to her process, because I see it as our own. Somehow in our spiritual process and growth, there's going to be times where we just don't get it, where we struggle, where we doubt, where we question. And it's okay. We get in trouble when we judge ourselves for being there, but we just have to just let it be and trust that it's part of our expansion process. This priest says, contrary to reports in the press, Mother Teresa did not suffer a crisis of faith. In fact, her struggle was not with faith at all, but with the loss of feeling of faith. As she stepped out of the convent and into the slums of Calcutta, what had been her usual consolation in prayer, abruptly ended. Isn't that what happens to us when things change in the outer and I had this beautiful relationship with Spirit, I feel the grace, I feel the power, and then something happens and we're like, I'm not feeling it like I used to, right? And then we wonder, says, though she would not understand until later, she was being asked to share the same inner darkness suffered by the poor she served, and to do so for their sake and for the love of the Lord. This is really like heavy in the Catholic idea of maybe some suffering. But beyond that, isn't it true that when you and I manage to experience the situation of somebody else, immediately we become more compassionate? And I relate it to my own cancer experience, where somebody tells me I'm going through chemo, and immediately something happens in me, right? If you have been that situation. And the truth is that we're all connected. And I can only imagine if Mother Teresa would be surrounded every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, by people in true suffering and sense of desolation, it would be hard to think that nothing was rubbing off on her, right? But where I differ, and maybe because that's why I'm a unity minister and not a Catholic nun, with all respect, is that I really believe that our true compassion comes when, if you are going through a difficult situation and I connect with you and what your pain is, it is my role, if I'm going to be in full expression of compassion, is to bring you up to a higher state by prayer. Not me going down to where you're at and becoming victims together, right? But just saying there's something else. We can shift from there. She was allowed to feel as though God was absent. And at first she agonized at the disconnect between her emotions and her belief. Though never did she lack the feeling that her lack of feeling become a lack of faith. So I believe that we can always choose. Even, and you will see in her interview, she goes like, the reporter, have you ever suffered? And Mother Teresa goes like, yeah, and what do you do to deal? And she goes, I just stay closer to Jesus. I just stick to Jesus. And the reporter will go, but how? I just got, And meaning, the way I see it is that power of will, where you might not get it completely, but you're like standing on that power and choosing something else. And last, almost least, she says that her dark night revealed the hidden depth of Mother Teresa's faith in a way that any lesser challenge could not. Her darkness not only allowed her to exercise her extraordinary faith to the full, to discover the true dimensions of which faith is capable. Have you ever been in circumstances in your life where being strong is your only choice? Either you're strong or you're strong. And when you choose to be strong, because that's just the option you have, you actually realize how strong you really are and how much power there is in you. So this whole circumstance for Mother Teresa gave her that opportunity to really strengthen her faith. And she says, and he says, she would want to encourage us to do the same in our own Calcutta, in our own dark night. Instead of allowing our trials and pain to become a prison, we can, as she did, make our pain a bridge into the pain of others, a catalyst for charity. And I would say I would make it more unity. Not only pain to sensibilize you and humanize you, but pain to take you deeper. I really believe that the gift of difficult circumstances in our lives have the innate gift of allowing you to explore more. And that is the gift itself. So I believe that if Mother Teresa, who we, is a saint, and we definitely feel her holiness, and just looking at her and just reading about her and her quotes really connects you to a place within of great devotion. And I am a big believer in the power of devotion. Actually, as I was sharing earlier today, we had a healer come to our church, and she did a workshop on transforming your heart. And she was mentioning about how devotion, it's a great way to allow your heart to stay open. And that was like an aha moment for me. And I said, tell me more, tell me more. And she says, well, I do a prayer every day to keep me in that state of devotion. And her prayer is, which I love, show me, God, today how much I am loved. Because we are. We're really, really loved. And as we find that out, I believe, and I'm in great conviction, that as you experience the love of God, your soul just wants to reach out and be used for service.